In this video, I'm going to talk about testing for ovulation by using urine ovulation predictor kits and strips. Hi, my name is Susan and this is the Oslims. Thank you so much for joining me today. So one of the best ways to predict when you're going to ovulate is by using these urine tests. So urine ovulation predictor kits or the LH strips. So let's get into everything you need to know about testing your urine to predict when you're going to ovulate. So urine ovulation tests are basically a kit that you can use at home that will measure luteinizing hormone in your urine. So during a normal cycle, luteinizing hormone, or LH, will rise, it will spike right before you ovulate. So by tracking your luteinizing hormone every single day, this will help you to figure out when you are ovulating. Some ovulation kits will also test for estrogen levels in your urine. So your estrogen spikes about 2 or 3 days before you ovulate. So it spikes before the luteinizing hormone. So the kits that test for estrogen will let you know a couple days before. The kits that just test for LH levels, it will let you know a couple days before when you're going to ovulate. But most tests and strips that you find out there are just testing for luteinizing hormone. So let's get into what is luteinizing hormone. So LH is produced by your pituitary gland and it carries out a few different roles during a woman's menstrual cycle. So through a series of events, LH will stimulate the follicles within the ovaries and also help to produce a mature egg. Around mid-cycle, once the egg is mature, a surge in LH will cause the follicle to rupture, which is basically ovulation. The follicle ruptures and the egg is released. So though your pituitary gland is producing LH, a certain amount of LH throughout your entire cycle, what we are looking for is this surge in LH, which is indicating the rupture of the follicle and ovulation. During the last half of your cycle, LH is still being produced. It encourages the corpus luteum to produce progesterone, which is needed if you become pregnant. During the last half of your cycle, LH is stimulating the corpus luteum, which is what that ruptured follicle turns into. It becomes the corpus luteum. So LH is still there and it is stimulating the corpus luteum to produce progesterone, which is needed in the early stages of pregnancy. So LH correlates directly to stimulating your follicles within your ovaries. It's stimulating and it's either helping to produce that mature egg, or when it surges, it's making that egg pop out and ovulate. And then after, when it's gone back down again, it is still stimulating that follicle, which is now the corpus luteum, and it's helping to produce progesterone. So when you think of LH is stimulating your follicles. So spikes in your LH level can be detected through your urine. So this is how a urine ovulation predictor kit comes into play. So how do we use this urine ovulation predictor kit? So there are so many variations of urine ovulation predictor kits. There's digital readouts. There are just simple strips that you can dip into your urine. It's all basically doing the exact same thing, but there are so many different products on the market that do this exact same thing. So definitely check whatever you buy, check the instructions that come with it, but I'm also going to give you some basic guidelines. So first of all, when should you start testing? So we're talking about during your cycle. When during your cycle should you start testing? So before you use your first urine ovulation predictor kit, I'm just going to start saying OPKs, ovulation predictor kits. It's also known as OPKs. So let's just stick with that. So before you start using your OPK, you want to have an estimate of when you're going to ovulate. So you can do this just like a mathematical estimation. If you know how long your cycle is, let's say your cycle is 28 days, subtract 12 to 14 days, and that will give you the cycle day that you should be ovulating on. So if you're subtracting 14 days, that means that your estimated ovulation day is cycle day 14. if you're subtracting 12 days then from the 28-day cycle, then that means your estimated ovulation day would be cycle day 16. So somewhere around there. So it's usually mid-cycle, but if you have a very long cycle, so say your cycle is like 35 days, then you still want to be using that subtracting 12 to 14 days from 35 or 35 days for however long your cycle is. So then it's not quite mid-cycle anymore. And the same thing if you have a really short cycle, you're still subtracting about 12 days. So it's not going to be mid-cycle. Your estimated ovulation day is going to be different than that. So this is getting a little bit confusing, but I have a blog post on this that it's all just written out. So it's going to be a lot easier for you to understand what I'm talking about. So I'm going to link down that below, as well as a blog post that's just strictly about menstrual cycles and menstrual charting. So that is going to help you as well. So check that out if you have no idea what I'm talking about. But basically what you want to do is have an estimate of when approximately you should be ovulating. And then from there, you want to begin your urine ovulation predictor testing, your OPK testing, about 5 days before you estimate that you may be ovulating. So the only real point to this testing 5 days before your estimated ovulation is so that you're not wasting ovulation strips or tests. So if you have like millions of the strips and you don't care, then just test every single day if you want to. And this might be the case if you have a very irregular period. So if you do have a really irregular cycle, then you might want to purchase like a big box of 100 luteinizing hormone testing strips, just so then you can test a lot more days in a row throughout your cycle. If you have no idea when your next period is going to start or how long your cycle is, then the whole estimation thing is probably not going to work for you. So yeah, maybe testing every single day is a better option for you. So once you've figured out which day you're going to start testing, then we need to figure out what time of the day you're going to start testing. So each OPK will have a different manual. So definitely check the manual or the instructions to see what time of day that they suggest. But I have been seeing that there's a lot of different times that people recommend or that kits recommend. So sometimes they say the first urine in the morning, and other times they say in the afternoon. So what happens in your body is that the LH surge usually happens in the morning, but it also takes a few hours for this LH surge to appear in your urine. So that's why many brands ask you to test later on in the day. Even though, your LH surge might be happening in the morning, it won't appear, it won't be able to test for it until, say, the afternoon. So if your kit doesn't have any timing instructions, then just follow these guidelines. Don't test during your first morning pee. After your first morning pee, don't drink too much water so that you're not diluting your next urination. Wait a couple of hours and then test during your second pee of the day. Always try to test around the same time each day. So another factor to consider is the length of your LH surge. So some women have an LH surge that lasts a few days, and other women have an LH surge that only lasts a few hours. So if you are testing your LH levels over a couple of cycles and you're just not getting any positives, then you might need to change from just testing once per day to testing twice per day, maybe even more, just to get that LH surge, or be able to get a positive reading of that LH surge. So now, how do you take the actual test? So obviously, again, there's going to be instructions with your specific kit, but basically what you need to do is get your urine onto part of the kit. So some tests you may be able to pee directly onto them. In other ones, most of them, it's just easier to get a cup and pee into the cup and then dip the strip or the kit into your urine. There's usually going to be a maximum line on the test as well. So be sure to not, if you're dipping, to not dip deeper than the maximum line, because you don't want that to affect your results at all. So using a clean cup, urinate into the cup and then dip the strip not above the maximum line, and keep it dipped in there for about 3 to 5 seconds. Or if you're peeing on the kit, on this whatever stick, then pee for 3 to 5 seconds. Hold it under your urine for 3 to 5 seconds and then pull it out. And then you want to lay the test flat down with the testing reading side up. Keep it flat down. Don't put it upside down so the urine goes faster, just flat. So as you're waiting for the test results, you'll notice a colored fluid moving across the strip or the window of the kit. This is perfectly normal, and you'll need about 3 to 5 minutes or even 5 to 10 minutes before you can actually read the results. Do not wait too long. A lot of kits say that after 30 minutes, then you can no longer read it because the results may change, but from what I've seen, they don't actually really change, but still you want to be sure to read your results before 30 minutes. So how do you actually read the results? So if you're using a digital kit, definitely check your instructions, because the digital kits are going to have their own specific readings. But most kits are not digital. It's either going to be a paper strip or basically a paper strip inside a plastic containment that will have like a readout window. So if it's non-digital, then it will usually have two lines. So one line will be a control line, and this control line will show up whether you are ovulating or not. And then the other line will be a test line. And the test line is your actual results. So some products will have a T and a C under each line to let you know which is which. Otherwise, just check your packaging. There'll be a test line and a control line. So to know if you have an LH surge, your test line will be equal to or darker than the control line. So if your test line is slightly lighter or not visible at all compared to the control line, then that means that you are not having an LH surge. So once you get your positive result, and again, this means that both lines are either the same darkness or your test line is darker than the control line. Once you get that positive, that means that your LH has surged already, and it means that you will be ovulating within the next 12 to 24 hours. So if you're trying to conceive, you definitely do want to be having sex as soon as you get that positive results, that LH surge, or as soon as you can. The thing with testing for LH surges though is, as I said, once you get the positive, that means you're going to be ovulating within the next day. The thing about that is that if you have not been having sex up to this point and you start having sex right now as soon as you get your LH surge test reading, then it might actually be too late to conceive. So when it comes to the basics of your fertile window, your egg, once it is released, once you have ovulated, your egg will only survive for 12 to 24 hours before it starts to disintegrate and can no longer be fertilized. Sperm, on the other hand, survives within the woman's body for 3 to 6 days. So the idea when it comes to a fertile window is that your fertile window begins about 3 to 5 days before you ovulate. And this means have sex 3 to 5 days, every day or every second day until you ovulate. And the sperm will be built up inside of your womb, inside of your fallopian tubes and uterus, so that when your egg does get released, then the sperm will already be there to fertilize that egg. So if you have not had sex up until this time, but you have sex now, right when you get your positive ovulation results, if you have sex at that point or a few hours later, it might be too late. And this is because when you do have sex, the sperm actually getting to where it needs to be, to your fallopian tube, can take up to 12 hours. So if it takes 12 hours for the sperm just to get there and your egg has already ovulated and it could be starting to disintegrate after, less than a day, then that's when it becomes almost too late. So for me personally, I prefer the ovulation predictor kits that also test for estrogen, because your estrogen is going to peak a couple days before your LH peaks. So I feel like this gives you a larger window in which to that you know you're going to ovulate, so you can start having sex earlier. Otherwise, if you can, just have sex every day or every second day before you predict that you're going to ovulate, or if you have no idea when you're going to ovulate, then just have sex like every day if you can, or every second day or every third day. As long as there is a buildup of sperm inside of you, then that's just your best bet. That's what you need to do in order to conceive a baby, basically. So basically what I'm saying is that, testing for LH surges is good. It's going to tell you, it won't confirm ovulation, but it will tell you when you should be ovulating. So it'll give you a few hours, basically, in which you should be having sex in order to conceive. But if you find that it's not working, this could be the reason why, because maybe you're not having sex early enough. I'm going to link down below the ovulation kit that I used that also tests for estrogen. There actually aren't very many on the market that also test for estrogen as well as LH. But I'll link it down below for you. So back to the actual test results. So if on your test the control line does not appear, then that means that your test is invalid. So do not read that test at all. Try out another test right away. If you have your cup of urine still, use that and test it again. And if the control line again is not positive, does not read, then it could be that you just have a bad batch, a bad box of urine strips. So you might actually have to buy another batch. So let's troubleshoot a little bit some issues that you might have with doing these urine ovulation kits. So what if, I've kind of gone over this a little bit already, but what if you don't ever get a positive reading? You've been testing your LH levels for a couple cycles and you're just not getting positive readings. So one possibility could be that you ovulate much earlier than what you've estimated. So a way to go around this would just be to get a kit with a whole bunch of strips that you can use, and then just start testing a lot earlier in your cycle. Another reason that I mentioned before is that your LH surge could be lasting a very short period of time. So some women's LH surge lasts a few days, and some women it might only last a few hours. So if it's only lasting a few hours for you, then again, you want to be testing more often. So you'll want to get a kit that has a lot of strips, and instead of testing just once a day, try testing a couple times a day. Another reason could be that you are not ovulating. If you do have a very regular menstrual cycle, then chances are that you are also ovulating on a regular basis. But there are a few times, I think most women go through this, some months they just won't ovulate, and this could be due to stress levels or anything else that could be affecting your cycle that month. So it could just be, a random, just not ovulating that cycle too. Try combining your urine testing with other forms of tracking ovulation, such as basal body temperature. Basal body temperature tracking is the one way that we can use at home to confirm that we have ovulated. So that could be a good one for you if you're curious if you're actually even ovulating at all. Then also there's things like checking your cervical mucus and checking the position of your cervix, saliva testing. There's lots of different methods that you can combine with urine ovulation testing to confirm that you are ovulating, or to help you predict when you are going to ovulate. So if you have done all of this troubleshooting and you've tried all of the things that I've suggested and you're still not getting a positive reading on your LH surges month after month, then this could be a point where you want to go to your doctor and talk to them and get some tests done, see if there's anything else going on with you. So then on the opposite end of the spectrum, what if you find that you are getting multiple positive LH surges, positive test readings for LH surges throughout your cycle? then what is that supposed to mean? So one thing, if you have two positive readings for your LH surges, this could be something that's called multiple follicular stimulation. So this is sort of when your egg is not fully mature, your body does the LH surge, hoping to release the egg, but it doesn't actually rupture. And then your body kind of realizes that it hasn't ruptured, so then it gives you another LH surge, a second LH surge to actually ovulate, to actually rupture the follicle and release the egg. So this second surge usually happens 3 to 5 days after the first surge. And this would mean that you did not ovulate the first time, but the second time you did ovulate. So if you are experiencing more than 2 LH surges throughout your cycle, then this could be a symptom of PCOS, so polycystic ovarian syndrome, or some sort of hormonal imbalance or hormonal irregularities. With PCOS, LH levels are high during the entire menstrual cycle, and so this might show positive LH surges throughout the cycle, a bunch of positive LH surges, but really it is just that your levels of luteinizing hormone are just high throughout your entire cycle. And really you might not be ovulating during any of these positives that your tests are giving you. So if you want to confirm ovulation, if you have PCOS, one of the best ways to do this is by using basal body temperature tracking. As I said, it's kind of one of the only at-home ways that we have to really confirm that you have actually ovulated. So if you find that you do have multiple positive LH surge readings when you're doing these testings, definitely go to your doctor and find out if you might have PCOS or something else, some other sort of hormonal imbalance. So how accurate really are urine ovulation tests? When performed correctly, urine ovulation testing can be 99% accurate at showing that you have had an LH surge. But when it comes to actual ovulation, urine ovulation testing cannot actually confirm that you have ovulated. All it is confirming is that there was a surge in luteinizing hormone. Some women do have a surge in LH without actually ovulating, without actually releasing an egg. And this is known as luteinized unruptured follicle syndrome. Other women, as I said, may have polycystic ovarian syndrome, and this can show up on your urine ovulation tests as multiple LH surges throughout the cycle. And so obviously for women with PCOS, this is probably not going to be a very accurate way of trying to find out when you're ovulating. Another factor could be if you are taking any sort of medications that might be affecting your hormone levels, then this sort of ovulation testing is not going to work for you necessarily. But besides that, urine predicting kits are very accurate as long as you have, a regular menstrual cycle and no hormonal imbalances, and you don't have PCOS. Then these tests are great for you. They're commonly used. They're so easy to find, and they aren't overly expensive, especially if you just get the plain old strips. So they can be a great method of predicting when you ovulate. So I really do suggest using this method of trying to predict your ovulation. This is what worked for me and my husband when we got pregnant, but actually more specifically for us was the kits that test for estrogen as well. That's what really worked for us. So yeah, definitely I suggest giving this a try if you were trying to conceive. And also check out all of my other videos on all of the other ways to find out when you are ovulating. Subscribe to this channel for tons of tips and tricks and information, everything to do with trying to conceive and fertility. And I will talk to you all very soon. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!